Imagine for a moment, you're in the mood for a steak. You want that classic satisfying experience, and a name pops into your head: Outback Steakhouse. You can almost picture the glowing sign, the promise of a sizzling steak, and of course, that legendary world-famous Bloomin Onion. For millions of people across the globe, from the suburbs of Ohio to the bustling streets of Seoul, Outback is a household name, a reliable go-to for a fun night out. It has built a billion-dollar empire on one single powerful idea: selling the exciting, adventurous taste of Australia. It's a brand that screams kangaroos, crocodiles, and rugged charm from every corner of its menu. But here's a fact: in the one country that this entire brand is built upon, the one place where it should have been a national champion, it's virtually invisible. If you ask the average Australian about Outback Steakhouse, you won't get a restaurant recommendation. You'll probably get a confused look and a slight laugh. This is the spectacular paradox of Outback Steakhouse. It's one of the most successful Australian-themed restaurants in history, yet it crashed and burned in Australia itself. This immediately brings up two fascinating questions. First, how on earth did a company dedicated to an Australian theme get it so wrong that actual Australians wanted nothing to do with it? And more importantly, if it failed so completely in its supposed homeland, how is it still a massively profitable global powerhouse today? The answer is an incredible story about marketing, fantasy, and the brilliant realization that sometimes the last person you should be selling to is the one who knows the truth. To unravel this mystery, we have to go back to the very beginning. While the name itself conjures images of the dusty Australian outback, the company's real journey started thousands of miles away in the humid, swampy landscape of Tampa, Florida. It was 1988, and four American restaurant veterans, Chris Sullivan, Robert Basham, Tim Gannon, and Trudy Cooper, were hunting for their next big idea. They found their inspiration by tapping into a massive cultural moment as America was completely swept up in a tidal wave of Australian fever. The film Crocodile Dundee had exploded into a global sensation, and its star, Paul Hogan, was the charismatic embodiment of a cool, rugged, and charmingly untamed Australia. The world was simply in love with this vision of Down Under. The founders saw a golden marketing opportunity, and their complete lack of Australian heritage, with reports they'd never even visited the country, was irrelevant to their plan. Their vision was aimed squarely at the American market, with a goal to create an immersive experience for a domestic audience completely captivated by the Crocodile Dundee fantasy. They essentially decided to bottle that adventurous feeling, slap a catchy name on it, and serve it with a side of fries. This approach led directly to the creation of Outback Steakhouse, a concept built from the ground up as an American's theme park version of Australia. And America loved it. Throughout the 1990s, Outback Steakhouse perfectly surfed the wave of the American casual dining boom, expanding at a breakneck pace from coast to coast. Americans couldn't get enough of the hearty portions, the reliable steaks, and that one-of-a-kind Bloomin Onion. By the late 90s, Outback had a broad national footprint and widespread familiarity across American suburbs. When the company finally decided to try its luck and expand into actual Australia in the early 2000s, the locals who walked in were met with a baffling, almost comical caricature of their own home. There was the menu that evoked pure culinary confusion for any Australian. It was filled with dishes given goofy Aussie-fied names like the Kookaburra wings, which is an absurd concept to an Australian, for whom a kookaburra is a beloved national bird known for its iconic laughing call. You could get Alice Springs chicken or a Toowoomba salmon, and you could pair that with a cocktail called the Wallaby Darned. It was the kind of Australia designed by someone whose only research was watching a movie marathon. And the star of the show, the culinary invention that put Outback on the map, was the Bloomin Onion. This colossal, deep-fried ball of onion served with a spicy mayonnaise is a masterpiece of American bar food. It's glorious, decadent, and is about as authentically Australian as a Philly cheesesteak. There is nothing remotely like it in Australian cuisine. When presented with this as the restaurant's signature Aussie Tizer, most Australians were simply baffled. The entire experience felt like a funhouse mirror reflection of their culture being sold back to them at a premium. This inauthenticity alone might have been enough to sink the brand, but Outback's problems ran much deeper. They fundamentally misunderstood the Australian dining landscape. Their business model was to bring American-style casual dining to the suburbs. Outback Steakhouse, however, came as a foreign corporation setting up in shopping centers. They would charge more money for steaks that were, in the eyes of many locals, no better than what they could get down the road. They were trying to sell an American-branded version of a product that Australia already produced at world-class levels. The value simply wasn't there. Why would you pay more for a steak in a tacky-themed restaurant when you could get a better one for less in the familiar, authentic atmosphere of your local pub? By 2009, Outback hadn't caught on in Australia the way it did in the US, remaining a small, low-profile player in the local dining scene. So this should be the end of the story. The brand fails in its target market, and now its failures are being studied in business courses and made fun of in memes, right? But this is where the story flips and becomes truly brilliant. The complete and utter failure in Australia is precisely the reason the brand is a global behemoth. The secret to Outback's success is a simple, powerful truth that it was never for Australians. It was designed from day one for everyone else. This is where the brand's strategy becomes brilliant. To a family in Brazil or a couple on a date in South Korea, the boomerangs on the wall and the silly menu names comes across as purely fun and interesting. The theme effectively provided a mini holiday of sorts, a feeling of adventure attached to the comfort of a good meal. It transformed a simple steak dinner into a trip to the land of Wonder Down Under, all without needing a passport. This is a classic marketing strategy seen in other successful chains. Take Olive Garden, for example. Olive Garden doesn't sell authentic Italian food, it sells a warm, comforting American fantasy of an Italian family dinner. Similarly, Panda Express doesn't serve traditional Chinese cuisine, it serves an Americanized version perfectly tailored to the American palate. Outback did the same thing. It created a powerful, positive, and easily digestible fantasy of Australia that was perfect for export. What failed as a reality in Australia succeeded as a fantasy everywhere else. Today, Outback's largest market outside of the United States is Brazil, a country with its own proud tradition of barbecue. There, the American take on steakhouse culture, wrapped in the fun Australian theme, is seen as a premium and desirable experience. Even more telling is the phenomenon in South Korea. One of their most popular menu items for years was a dish called Toowoomba pasta, a creamy, spicy pasta dish named after a mid-sized city in Queensland. This dish has zero connection to the city of Toowoomba or to Australian food in general, but it became a smash hit in Korea. This perfectly demonstrates the point that the name is just exotic flavoring. So in the end, the story of Outback Steakhouse isn't a story of failure. It's a story of accidental genius. It's a brand that succeeded because it understood that a compelling fantasy is often more profitable than a complicated reality. It failed in the one country that could see through the costume, the one audience that was immune to the marketing because they were living the real thing. But what do you think? Have you ever eaten at an Outback? Was it in the US, Australia, or anywhere else? We want to hear your stories. Was it better than expected, or exactly as weird as it sounds? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're always reading what you have to say. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay curious.